Hi, I'm Dr. Jami Fullerton, Director of Academic Programs for the School of Global Studies and Partnerships at Oklahoma State University. Michol Ecklund has spent more than 15 years in the oil and gas industry and is currently the Senior Vice President, General Counsel, and Corporate Secretary for Callon Petroleum in Houston. She's served in a number of progressive positions regarding law, including compliance, litigation, human resources, investor relations, corporate communications, and tax. She is a leading expert on global oil and energy trends and was recently named among the Women Who Mean Business in Energy. Michol came back to her hometown of Stillwater to speak as part of the OSU School of Global Studies and Partnerships Global Briefing Series, which brings together visiting scholars, experts, and world leaders from around the globe to provide OSU students, faculty, staff, and the public with a global perspective on current events. I sat down with Michol to get her perspective on energy and the effects it has on the world, as well as her take on being a woman in a male-dominated field. Well, Michol, thank you for joining us at OSU this afternoon. Welcome back to Stillwater. We're so happy to have you here, and we're looking forward to hearing from you tonight at the Global Briefing Series. I wanted just to start out by asking you, how did you get from where you are today from Stillwater, Oklahoma?
Sure. Well, first let me say it's great to be home. It's great to be in Stillwater, and it's great to be at OSU. This place is still home for me and such a big part of my roots and the values that I have and the work ethic and the curiosity that has led me down this unexpected path of my career all started right here in Stillwater. So it's great to be home.
You left Stillwater after high school, and now you work in Houston in the oil business?
Yes.
What came in between?
Well, first I'll say I'm grateful to my family and this community for putting a real value on education for me. And when I had the opportunity to go to Rice University in Houston, Texas, I have to say at first I didn't jump at it. I said, Mom, Dad, it's literally 100 times larger than Stillwater. I don't know that I can live there. But I was attracted to Rice and the academic program it offered and the small community that they had in the middle of Houston, and moved there in 1993. Spent 4 years there on campus and absolutely loved it. In fact, I loved it so much I live 2 blocks away now, and I'm president of the Alumni Association because it's important to me. And then I found myself at Harvard Law School.
Wow.
And spent 3 years there at Harvard studying the legal disciplines, also always with a bent towards corporate law. That was my interest, as was tax law, and in particular employee benefits. I had an interest in using my degree in ways that could help people, and found that employee benefits interest to fit that area. And then I happened to meet a young man in Houston over the summer that just sealed the deal that that's where I would head for my career. So I spent a couple of years in-house at a law firm there, Baker Botts, and had a lot of great experiences working for many different companies, doing a lot of transactions. It was a fascinating time to be a young professional in Houston because it was right in the middle of the Enron meltdown.
That's right.
So I did not work for Enron, but I had several friends that did, and to have their inside view during those crazy months as things tumbled and surprised the world was pretty insightful to a young person, and got to work on some transactions that were around it, and so saw things from a different perspective. A couple years in, a bit to my surprise, one of my clients came calling. I had worked for Marathon Oil Company as they were spun off from U.S. Steel, and came to spend about half of my time working for them doing employee benefits and pensions and executive compensation work. And they called me up and said, we need someone like you now that we're an independent company. And I said, gosh, I'm not sure. I had this big law career planned, and it literally was a fortune cookie one night that said, time to make a change. And I thought, why not? I like these people. It's a fascinating business. They have a lot of U.S. home business, but also global business, which was attractive to me. So I made the leap and spent 15 fantastic years at Marathon Oil. I have great things to say about that company, about its leadership, about their ethics, and that began my journey to truly be a member of the energy industry.
And so you're currently with Callon Energy, is that
Yes,
right?
Callon Petroleum. So I took that role about 1.5 years ago. It was a contact from earlier in my career that reached out and said that they were looking to hire their first general counsel. It was a smaller 70-year-old company that didn't have a general counsel and was growing really fast. And I enjoyed the folks that I met and saw the opportunity to put my own thumbprint on something And it has definitely been the opportunity of my career to help this company grow. We're about a $2 billion company that's focused in West Texas and the Permian, and continue growing, continue facing the challenges of the oil industry day in and day out. But it's a lot of fun to be part of that senior management team, and my role there has also grown. I'm now a senior vice president and also lead the land and human resources and sustainability teams at our company.
Okay. Well, you know, the oil industry, I don't need to tell you, is a very male-dominated industry, and so I wanted to hear a little bit about what it's like to be a woman and work in the oil business.
Well, I'll say I had to get used to it. Even still today in 2019, just last week, I was at a bank meeting in downtown Houston, and there were 30 people around the table and only 2 women. So,
wow.
Some of it is still there, but some of it has changed significantly over almost the 20 years that I've been in the energy industry. And a couple of takeaways from that experience. One, it takes courageous leaders to create change. And I look at Clarence Cazelot, who was the CEO at Marathon Oil, and Joe Gatto, who was our CEO at Callon Petroleum, who are both folks that really embrace diversity in their companies and in their leadership teams. When I joined Marathon, I remember going early to an executive leadership breakfast, and there was one woman there. And later in my career, not that long, too much later, half of our executive leadership team was women. The CFO, the head of exploration, the head of North America, the head of law, the head of HR. And that starts with a very strong leader who makes it a priority to give people opportunities.
Did that change the dynamic of the company, in your opinion?
Absolutely. And for me as a more junior woman, it definitely did. It gave me outlets for mentors and sponsors in my career. There are many women that blazed a path as working mothers that I looked up to and still do today. And so for me as an individual, it certainly did. But I would say culturally, it also helped change the company. You know, we talked for several years about, you know, this newly independent company and how we had some functional silos, and folks would stay on their floors and work within their departments. And to truly be successful, we needed more collaboration and we needed more communication across lines to understand how what the left hand was doing and the right hand was doing came together as one company. And I credit those women leaders that were mentors and sponsors of mine that really helped create that dynamic.
Yeah. That's a story I think that resonates in all industries.
It is. Yeah. It is, and I'll say
including the university.
Yeah. There's a couple other takeaways too that I think about from that experience that as I have grown over my career, and one of them is I love to give advice to young women about having courage and in particular being confident. For myself over time, reading Lean In from Sheryl Sandberg and The Confidence Code by Claire Shipman and Katty Kay, and also a book called The Imposter Theory really helped me realize that when I had self-doubt, I wasn't unique. And even now today, I can watch people in a meeting and say, yeah, he's not 100% sure about what he's saying, but he's saying it with gusto and he's saying it with confidence. And that's something that I'm learning, I still work on today, and love to mentor young women on because they have great ideas. And for some reason, sometimes we don't always show up with the strength behind those ideas that we deserve.
Yeah. Good, very good advice. I want to shift just a little bit and talk about the international part of your career.
Yes.
And so you said you were working in Africa, is that right?
I was. So I always lived in Houston, but traveled overseas extensively, earned those expatriate premiums based on the number of travel days in certain years, but really enjoyed that a lot. There are challenges about building a business in countries where they haven't had businesses of that type, and in particular at Marathon Oil, we did that in Equatorial Guinea. We ultimately built, we have 3 gas plants and an offshore operation, and so we had an operation that employed over 2,000 people.
Oh,
and
wow.
It began at the very baseline of constructing trailers that eventually became buildings, but starting with training individuals. At first, some basic language skills. Next for us was very important, the safety skills. Our energy industry it can be a very, very dangerous one. And so that foundation is knowing how to safely operate equipment. But I saw over the 10 years that I personally worked there, tremendous growth of the entire population, but especially prideful for me of individuals that gained confidence, that took on leadership roles. And over that 10 years, we saw a significant decrease in the number of the expatriates that were there helping run the plants and run the operations because of the growth in the knowledge and the experience and the leadership skills of the local population.
That's a great story. That's the kind of things we like to hear about. Let's dolly back just a little bit from your career, and one of the topics you're going to speak about later this evening is energy and geopolitics. I know even this morning I heard a story about how the U.S. is going to impose sanctions on countries who are buying oil from Iran. So we know that energy plays a big role in our international politics. Can you comment on that story or just more generally on the topic?
Sure. Well, hydrocarbons are extremely valuable, and they become both a carrot and a stick in international politics in many ways. It starts with the baseline that every ruler would like to be able to provide more energy to the people of their country and do so at affordable prices. Some countries have those hydrocarbons naturally in their own backyard, but then they're also looking for the revenues that come from selling those on the international market. There are other countries that are trying to grow and need those same energy resources to grow their economies and grow their industries and improve the quality of life for the individuals in those countries. So it becomes a very valuable trading currency. And it is no surprise that many of the hotspots on the international map are also countries where there is significant oil wealth, whether you are looking at Iran, at Libya, at Venezuela of late, are all countries that are in focus, and how they're allowed to trade their hydrocarbons and who their trading partners are can have significant impact on the larger geopolitical scale along the way.
And on everyday Americans. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but this will increase the price of gas.
Yes, absolutely. I think oil prices went up 3% yesterday, solely based on that rumor.
Well, there you go.
Yes.
More generally, when we think about energy, we like to think about alternative forms of energy. Is your company involved in wind or solar, or do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, as we become more globalized and populations improve their standard of living, they're going to consume more energy, right? And so we're going to have to look beyond oil, I would think.
Yes, I firmly agree. I'm a all of the above supporter when it comes to energy. I also think that hydrocarbons aren't going away anytime soon, but we do need to be developing alternative forms of energy, both because of what we're learning about the environmental impact of hydrocarbons, but also because ultimately hydrocarbons will be a finite resource. Now, we don't know if that's 50, 100, 500 years from now, but it is a finite resource that took millions of years to make, and we won't be able to replace it fast enough at some point. Mm-hmm. So absolutely support all forms of energy. My company right now is not one that's directly investing in those forms of energy. We're a smaller company, and so we owe it to our shareholders to stay focused on what we're good at. But I'm glad to see some of the oil majors that really are investing heavily in those areas. I know Shell in particular is one that's focused on wind energy, solar energy, and hydropower along the way, which are critical to our future growth and to be able to provide plentiful energy around the world.
Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
Sure. I'll just say that two things. One, energy has been kind of my career highlight, and in many surprising ways. I feel like it found me instead of me finding it. I did grow up in the oil patch in Oklahoma, right, but that was in the late 80s when oil was not as prolific. And so getting to spend my career in this fascinating industry that is both extremely relevant on the personal level to all of us, very geopolitical as we've been discussing. It is technically complex. What's happening miles beneath the earth makes a big difference in how much we pay at the pump every day. Mm-hmm. And it's also commercially complex, whether you are negotiating with landowners in Oklahoma or West Texas, or you are negotiating with hydrocarbon ministers in West Africa or Asia. it's always a challenge and requires a lot of creativity. So I highly suggest the industry to folks to consider. I do think it will be around for a long time. It is the most plentiful and affordable source of energy right now that's widely available and can be stored. So I think it's a path worth pursuing. But even bigger and beyond that, and to our theme on the global briefing tonight, is the opportunity to meet people from all around the world. I feel fortunate to have grown up in this community where there are a lot of international students.
Yes.
So even as a young person, I got to know people through the university, through church, and otherwise that came from different countries, and that definitely piqued my curiosity. And I'm thankful for the chance to travel, to see other parts of the world, and to meet people that at the end of the day really aren't any different than me. So whatever industry you're in, I hope folks will consider that as an opportunity and pursue those opportunities when they present themselves.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I appreciate you being here and your point of view. And we're just so lucky to have you back in Stillwater. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
We were delighted to host Michol as one of our Global Briefing Series speakers during our 20th anniversary year. You can watch her full Global Briefing Series lecture as well as others on OState TV. For more information about upcoming events with the OSU School of Global Studies and Partnerships, visit our website at global.okstate.edu.